Hello and welcome to the Art of Being Human. We've been going through the different stages of development from birth through the elderly years, and I've added some things like, for example, bullying, divorce, intermarriage, things like that we deal with every day, our intelligence and what that means. What I haven't gone through yet is hearing loss and cataracts. Now, I don't know how much I'm going to be doing with cataracts, but many people do have them as they get older, and it's not uncommon to go through cataract surgery. I can remember going to my eye doctor, and I was fine. I mean, he did the usual exam and prescribed the glasses and all of that. And then he said, I'm going to have to prepare you for the cataract surgery, which you're going to have. And I said to him, I was surprised he hadn't mentioned it before. I says, do I have cataracts? And he said, no, you don't. I don't even see them coming in. But you're going to have them. I was thinking to myself, why prepare me for something I don't have? Maybe I'll beat the odds and I won't have them. But he says, everybody gets them. You're going to have them too. It's just a question of time. So I'm ready for that. I'm prepared for that. Well, wouldn't you know, even though I thought I could beat it out, I actually did get cataracts, and I got them within a couple of years, and I had both eyes operated on. And then 2 years later, my eyes got blurry again, and I had 2 laser surgeries, one on each eye, and that completed the process. Now, it's not unusual to go through that second laser surgery, because when they operate on your eyes for cataracts, they take off the area that has the cataract on them and substitute a lens. But as they're doing that, they have to move the eye some. And the eye is located kind of in a sac. They don't take the sac out. They keep the sac there, and then the eye is placed where it's supposed to be, you know, the surgery is over with. But then the sac can actually get scarred up with scar tissue and things like that, and can make your eye cloudy again. It takes about 2 years or so for this to happen. And so when that happens, you go back to the doctor and you say, what's wrong? Something happened with my cataract surgery. Well, it wasn't the cataract surgery, which was a complete success, but now they've got that sac to deal with. So they give you laser surgery. It takes about 5 minutes. You don't feel anything. You're all numbed up, and you can hear little pop, 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 almost like bullet sounds. And 40 or 50 of them, however many they'd have, and what they do is they put holes through that sac so light can get in, and then your vision is restored to what it was before you got the sac problem. And so I noticed when I had the surgery, they did it twice. They don't do both eyes at the same time. They did it twice, and then they numb you up, and your vision is blurred for the first few hours you get out of the surgery, and then it starts to clear. And I was just amazed at how well I saw. I saw just as well as I did after the cataract surgery. And the good news about that is that you'll never have to have that surgery done again. Once they put those holes in that sac with the laser, then that's permanent, and you never have to have it done again. So that's what happens with the cataract surgery. What I really want to get into today is hearing loss, because it's almost a given that everybody will have hearing loss. And I didn't think that that would be true, but it is. As you get older, you get more hearing loss. And it has a tremendous impact on your life. It's considered to be the silent epidemic, and it has a great impact on your life. Some think that it has more impact on your life than obesity and diabetes and stroke and even cancer. I'm not sure that that's true, but that's what I've read. And it's associated with the risk of dementia, falls, and depression. And it contributes to social isolation. It contributes to loneliness, and it can be linked to poorer job performance. So hearing loss is something that has very serious connotations along with it, very serious ramifications. Now, people do lose their hearing as time goes on, and they don't want to admit it. For some reason, there's a stigma. I'm not so sure about the stigma now, but there is a stigma that's associated, so I've read, with hearing loss. And some people feel that wearing a hearing aid makes them feel old and makes them look old. So people don't like to admit to hearing problems because they think it's going to make them look old. However, young people have it too, and it's caused a lot by loud music, and it's caused by wearing earbuds and loud concerts and things like that. And what you are likely to do if you do a lot of listening to very, very loud music, screaming guitars, you know what I mean, the rock music and so forth, you're likely to lose a section of the hearing, maybe not all of it. You may lose your ability to pick out the high sounds or the real low sounds, but you may be able to hear normally in the middle. So there is a problem with you being able to communicate, you're understanding what people are saying and so forth with the problem with hearing. And so people don't like to admit to it. But here are some facts about hearing loss. By age 50 or in the 50s somewhere, 30% of people have lost a part of their hearing. Now here we're not talking about deafness, we're not talking about complete hearing loss, but parts of their hearing aren't as good. They can't hear people on the phone as well. They can get telephones that magnify sound so they can hear better. But a good 30% have got hearing loss. At age 60 or in the 60s somewhere, 45% of people have hearing loss, not deafness, but hearing loss. And you can see the percentage goes up year by year by year. In your 70s, 68% have hearing loss. It's progressive. More and more people lose hearing as they get older. And as you get older, if you have a hearing loss, which is going to be likely, like the cataracts, it's going to be likely that you're going to lose some hearing. It progresses and it gets worse and worse and worse until finally you opt to get a hearing aid. So it can advance as you're getting older. Young people have it, and I have some statistics here. 1.1 billion teens and young adults are at risk for hearing loss due to loud music, rock concert, and earbuds. You know, we weren't born to have something sticking in our ear all the time as we walk around listening to loud music so other people can't hear it. And it's bound to cause some disturbance in your hearing as you get older. But people don't consider that when they're young. If you're young, you don't think anything's going to happen. Oh, yeah, I can hear fine. But you see, it is possible to lose your hearing. Because of the stigma of hearing loss, adults usually wait 7 to 10 years before they get a hearing aid or some device that will help them to hear. I'm not so sure, as I said before, about the stigma. I'm reporting to you what I have learned and what I've researched out. But I don't think there's that much stigma to hearing loss because so many people have it, and even younger people have it. But according to what I've read, because of the stigma, people wait 7 to 10 years. They probably also wait because they wait until the hearing becomes so bad that they really desperately need a hearing aid. They could use one sooner, but they don't get one sooner. They don't get one until they have to, which would mean a progression of their hearing to a really remarkably low level before they actually purchase a hearing aid. Another problem in getting a hearing aid is the expense. It costs sometimes up to $6,000 to get a hearing aid or 2 hearing aids. And that's a lot of money. And I don't think Medicare pays for anything like this. You know, with cataract surgery, Medicare will pay for one lens, a new lens for the eye that had the surgery. And even though the other eye may have changed and you need new lenses for both eyes, they will only pay for the one lens because of the surgery, because it is surgery. But with hearing aids, I don't think they pay anything at all. And $6,000 to a person who's elderly is just too much money to be able to afford it. So I think that's another problem. There are attempts being made by electronic companies, Apple, computer companies, to make a hearing aid that can be much, much less expensive and bypass the real expensive devices that you wear. So they want to make hearing aids more accessible, not necessarily hearing aids, but devices that will help people hear that won't be considered to be hearing aids. Now, I have seen on television and also in gift magazines a device which they have that will magnify sound. And I know a lot of churches use them too. They're not hearing aids because the church is not going to buy a hearing aid for people because it has to be individually tailored to whatever your needs are. But there are devices that will magnify sound that you can put up to your ear or next to your ear, and you can adjust how loud the sound gets. It's not a hearing aid, but it is a device that enhances sound. And I've seen them advertised also on television in which they will say, this is not a hearing aid. One, to let you know that it's not a hearing aid. And another thing, probably to let you know that it's not going to be near as expensive as a hearing aid is. I don't know how successful they are. But there are now devices that you can use. And the other thing is that Congress has passed a bill that the government will have to monitor what's being sold over the counter for hearing devices, because a lot of these devices that help you hear, you don't have to get a prescription for them. You can just go in and buy them. So how do you know what you're getting? Is it good quality? Is it not good quality? How much adjustment can you make in terms of how loud it gets or how soft it gets? And so the government wants to have companies or have companies monitor that, so that what you get over the counter will meet certain standards. That's usually all that it means. It's got to be good to a certain point before they allow it to be sold, because you don't know what you're getting sometimes. So that is helpful too. And the Food and Drug Administration is supposed to monitor this, and it's supposed to start within a 3-year period. Now, my opinion on hearing loss is, yes, almost everybody has it. For some, it's more troublesome than others. For some, it has more ramifications than for others. Some people, I think, may be happy that they can't hear everything because it cuts out a lot of arguments and a lot of things that, frankly, they don't want to listen to anyway. But there is the isolation factor that's serious. If you can't hear, you can't respond to what people are telling you, and that can be very important. If you get a call from the doctor on the phone and you can't tell what they're saying, or you misinterpret what they're saying, that can be a serious matter. If they're giving you instructions on how to take medication and when to take it, and you're listening and you're not quite sure what they said. Was that 4 units of insulin? Was that 6 units of insulin? It can be a problem. So we need to get to the point where if a person needs a hearing aid, that they don't have to feel embarrassed about it. Who feels embarrassed about wearing glasses? You know, a lot of people wear glasses. I don't know of anyone that feels embarrassed about it. I've known that young children and young teenagers are sometimes embarrassed about it. But now what they've done is they've made glasses kind of like a design factor. You can wear fancy ones. You can wear simple ones. You know, they can add to what you're wearing. They can be a fashion statement as well. So I don't think there's much cause for concern in terms of wearing glasses, and so I think there should not be any concern in terms of using a device that helps you to hear, because it's important that you hear. You lose a lot if you're not able to hear. So I think there's hope. And the other thing is, why do they have to be so expensive? Why $6,000 to buy a set of hearing aids? And then you have to buy the batteries, and the batteries are always dying, so they always need to be replaced, so you're constantly buying batteries for it. The people that I know that have hearing aids are always complaining that they're breaking down, that they don't work right, that they have to take them in for adjustments, and all this kind of thing. Why not get a simple device that actually works? And that you don't have to spend tons of money on, that you don't have to buy batteries every time you turn around, and that works, and that looks comfortable and easy to wear. So this is all I really want to say in terms of hearing loss. But cataracts and hearing loss are something that you're going to find that most people who are growing in the elderly years, from 50 on up, or maybe even earlier. I know younger people that can't hear very well. I know younger people that are practically deaf and they have hearing aids in both ears and they still have trouble communicating. And if you're completely deaf, then you can't hear sound to be able to talk right. The problem with deafness is that children learn how to talk by listening to other people talk. And then they copy the sounds, and eventually they get it right, and they have correct pronunciation. But if they're really deaf, they don't hear right. They don't hear sounds right. So what they're mimicking is not right, and they end up by not being able to speak clearly because they haven't heard the sounds to mimic right. So I know there are surgeries, ocular implants or implants in the ear that help out if you have a problem, if a person is born with a problem. And so there are various stages of development and research, so things are getting better and better and better. But if you have a hearing problem or if you have a vision problem, you don't have to despair. You're not that unusual. Other people have it too. And you have every right to the treatment that you need. And so just get the best treatment that you can, use the best device that you can, and your hearing can be helped. Your vision can be helped unless you're completely blind. Your hearing can be helped sometimes if you're completely deaf. So it's not a problem that has no resolution. It does have a resolution, but just to let you know that hearing loss and vision loss are typical of people growing older in our society, and it's something that can be dealt with, and it's something that can be corrected, at least to the satisfaction of most people, and it will get better as it goes along. So I'm going to stop this part, and we're going to start. We don't have too much time left, but what I want to do is get into a section on medication. Now, I'm not talking about what drugs are used for what condition. I'm not being that specific, but I want you to know how medications are prepared, how they are classified. When can you get prescriptions refilled? Under what classification can you get prescriptions refilled? Under what classification can't you get prescriptions refilled? And how's the development of drugs anyway? And the cost of, I'm concerned because the cost of medications has gone up dramatically, way too high. And people don't get their prescriptions filled because they just can't afford it. There's only about 40% of people that even bother to get their prescriptions filled because they can't afford it. It's too expensive. I know my sister read an article in the newspaper, which she's going to save for me, that said that insulin has gone up 60% in price. There's no need of it. I don't know how much of it is due to necessity and how much of it is due to greed. We're all aware of what happened with the EpiPen. If a person is allergic, they can die with a severe allergy, and so they have to carry an EpiPen with them. So if they do get stung by a bee or get involved with anything that they're allergic to, they can take an injection, and that stops the allergic reaction. However, one man in one company was responsible for increasing the price 600% overnight for an EpiPen. So those who had maybe a couple of EpiPens because they have drastic allergies can't buy them. They can't afford them. And the man who was responsible ran a drug company. He no longer does, thank heavens, but he ran a drug company, and he just decided to raise the price of the EpiPen 60% or 600%. And so people couldn't buy it. And he was interviewed on television. I saw the interview, and he was told that he was the most hated man in America because people couldn't get what they desperately need. In a country like the United States, which really has wonderful medical care, you should be able to access it. I know one of my friends said, well, we have the best medical care available. And I said to her, not if you can't afford to get it. What good is a new medication if you can't buy it? It may cure cancer, it may do all kinds of things, but at $300 or $400 a pill, You know, how are you going to afford something like that? And especially if Medicare or insurance companies decide they're not going to cover it. Then what do? You have to pay for it cash in hand, and you may not be able to do it because of the cost of it. So it is important that the cost of medications be reasonable. And I don't know how that would happen, but it does have to happen. Now, in terms of the EpiPen, the company, the man no longer works with the company. I don't remember what company it is. And they have now a generic form of the EpiPen. But they say it doesn't work as good as the original, but it is cheaper. But it's still high. It's higher than the original EpiPen was, as far as I know. So a lot of people turn to generics, and for the most part, generic drugs, which have the same active ingredient as the regular prescription, they usually work well. However, they're not formulated the same kind of way. They change the fillers, or they change the way they process the drug, and as a result of that, although for most people they work just as well, for some people they don't. And you have, for those people who generic doesn't help them that much, they have to go and buy the original prescription, which is much, much more expensive. For most people it's a help, but for some people it is not. So we have to deal now with the medications and the cost of the medications and how are we going to get it. You know, the government may have to step in and put a cap on it. The legislature may have to step in and put a cap on it so that the drug companies just don't charge higher and higher prices for the sake of greed. As they say, it's hard to determine what's necessary for research and what's just definitely for greed. And there's another thing that's happening too, and I'm just giving you a heads up, and I'll close with this because we're running out of time, and I'll start more in terms of the medications next time. But the other thing that my doctors have told me, and they're right, that some pharmacies are not giving the patient what the doctor orders on the prescription. They're giving them less than what was ordered on the prescription, or changing it in some way so the patient is not getting the benefit of what the doctor has put on the prescription. You're going to have to watch for that, because that is happening as a trend. My doctor says it's an ongoing trend for pharmacies to deny people the full amount of medication that their doctors have ordered. Personally, I think this is terrible. I think it's like you go into a nursing home and some nurse on drugs decides to deny people the pain medication and take the pain medication themselves because they're addicted. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So it's something you need to kind of be aware of. And then if that happens to you, you need to take action. You need to call your doctor. He needs to call the pharmacy. This is what I want my patient to have. This is what my patient needs, and make sure they have it. They can even write another prescription demanding and being very specific that the pharmacy gives you what you are supposed to have. And I know I've run into this myself, so I know it's a fact. So at any rate, we're about out of time. I'm going to close it here, and we'll get involved in the medications and how they're formed and what they do on the next show. So please join me then.